Everyone on your best behavior. Today's guest is my boss. Joining me now is Joe Skurzewski, recently celebrating his 7-year anniversary at KMOT. I want to get that right out of the way just so we all know how old you are, Joe. I actually, just to make you feel better, I celebrated my 5-year anniversary and I got noise-canceling headphones. Unfortunately for you, you don't have anything for your 7. It's a prime number anniversary. No. So since you started, you were the news anchor, producer, and then got promoted, and you'll always remind me, to news director. What's it been like since assuming that higher-up role at KMOT?
Well, it's been quite an experience. So it's been a little over 2.5 years now since I took over as news director at KMOT. After my predecessor left, they turned around and said, Joel, if you want the position, it's yours. So, that was an interesting time because I basically went from, understand what I'm saying here, I basically went from, I was thinking about my future at the time, and, I was relatively committed to Minot, but in the same respect, I had to think about my future as well. So I had kind of put out some feelers for some jobs. So basically overnight, once I accepted the job as news director, I went from looking for jobs to looking for employees. Because now that I was moving into the news director position, not only did I have to replace myself in the newsroom, but I also had to find like at least one other person. Now, bear in mind, this was back in the fall of 2017, so I can't believe it's been that long already. Christ. So, and I took the job and I hit the ground running. When I first took over as news director, I'll admit it was kind of weird having an office. I had never had an office to myself in my life. And at first I actually didn't want the office, but now that I've done the job for a couple of years, you need an office if you're a manager. I feel that, as a news director in KMOT, I'm in a very unique position, because KMOT, is a very unique place. I just bumped, Ben's kitchen desk. KMOT is a very unique place because I can, give, fellow young people, people that I'm somewhat close to in age, but I'm older than still, I can give them an opportunity to break into the TV industry. In the short period of time, I'm proud to say that I have done that for a handful of people. And, already I've had a couple people that I hired move on to bigger and better things. So, at a relatively young age, and I'm not saying this to brag, but it's the truth, at a relatively young age, I was given an opportunity to help other people grow in the industry. So I'm very grateful for that.
I asked a similar question to a lot of the coaches that are on the younger side on the show. Maybe like they coach a college team and they're not much older than college age. It can be similar to you. I mean, when you were first promoted to news director, did it feel weird at all? Maybe just obviously you're not like a disciplinarian, like hardcore, where you're an approachable guy, but at the same time, did it feel weird being like telling someone to go do this, even though that's your job now? And
it did.
Same thing with like interviewing applicants and stuff.
It did, and to a degree, it still does. One of the weird things, and I've talked with some of the other managers in our news company about this, is that, especially in news, when people go into managerial positions, none of us are really trained. We're really trained for it. We didn't go to school to be managers. We went to school to be journalists. And as so often happens at TV stations, the veteran producers or the veteran person who's left, if they choose to stay at the station, they can work their way up to being, like executive producer or news director. So we don't have a lot of business training skills on how to manage a shop. So, I'm fortunate that I've gotten a lot of help from some of my fellow managers and gotten advice on things and not sick, I just have a tickle in my throat. I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of people that have kind of guided me along the way. I've also read a lot of books on, what it takes to be a leader in a newsroom. It is weird, and I'm still in many ways learning how to do the job. It's not easy. I'm the kind of guy that and I'll admit this, I do want people's approval, people's acceptance. So, and sometimes when you're a boss, I think the late great Kobe Bryant said something along these lines. Sometimes when you're a boss, you're going to have to do things that are uncomfortable, and you're going to have to, but you got to break out of that, and you got to be able to give directions. But in the same respect, I think, especially with current generations, it's better to have a boss that is a little more amicable to his or her staff. I think that plays better with younger people nowadays, instead of having a boss that just lords over them. So I think it's good to have a boss that can kind of be a man of the people, but in the same respect also be able to give directions.
You're about to hit 3 years in the news director role, and believe it or not, as you continue to bring new reporters to Minot, you actually you need more than one hand already to count the hires that you've had. You've had Jack Springate, Megan Von Barron, Jacqueline Ayer with the weather, Faith Hatton, Sasha Strong, Charlie Young. You got, by the time this airs, we're going to have a brand new reporter in addition. So, I mean, you're almost to 10 hires even, so that's pretty crazy. So, with that in mind, what do you kind of say to the new staffers that you bring on about the Minot community as they prepare to oftentimes make this first professional step into TV news?
Well, and I tell people this during the interview process as well, but what I tell people about Minot is that, part of the reason that I've stayed is, part because of the opportunities I've been given to move up the ladder, internally, but also because of the community. The people of Minot really are the salt of the earth. And I know that sounds kind of cliched, but the reality is it's the truth. People here, I'm sure Ben is familiar with the saying, "Don't act nice," when he moved out here. And the people out here in North Dakota, and particularly in Minot, in my opinion, are unusually nice. They'll give you the shirt off their back. I feel like the welcome wagon here, but it's the truth. Like I have a family in Minot that I have a standing invitation to, their home for Thanksgiving if I can't get home. So that I tell new hires that because it makes it easier to move here. If you're going to break into your career, I can't think of a better place than this because working and living in a nice community where the people who are from there are nice makes it all the more easier. Because when you begin your job in TV, if you think about it, it's nerve-wracking. I mean, no amount of schooling or training can prepare you for this job. So your first few months on the job, you're inherently going to make a lot of silly mistakes. I made a lot of silly mistakes myself my first few months on the job. So, it's nice to be able to at least be in a nice community that, you're not getting scrutinized every day by the public.
Joe is enough of a workaholic where he comes over to my place here and we record this podcast. A few minutes back, he calls my kitchen table a kitchen desk. He's a big desk guy.
Yeah,
desk pusher all the time.
Yeah.
So throughout this illustrious Minot career that you've had already, what's been kind of the biggest stories that you've covered personally?
Okay, so the biggest stories that I would say that I've covered are the first big one, if some of our Minot viewers remember this, was the murder trial. A lot of it has to revolve around the courthouse and crime. That's where a lot of your big stories come from. The first one was back in, would this be 2014? God, I don't even remember the year now. It was the murder trial for the suspect accused of killing Jack Scholl, Williston rancher. Many of you probably remember that case. The suspect, they ended up moving the trial from Williams County to Ward County because of some publicity. So I covered that trial, and the suspect was convicted, and he's been sentenced to prison. That was probably my first big story. Another big story that I covered was in Rolette County, how the community came together and honored the life of the fallen deputy, Colt Ellery, who was killed in the line of duty. Unfortunately, in this past month, we had a Grand Forks police officer who was killed in the line of duty, but before that, the last law enforcement officer in North Dakota that was killed was a deputy named Colt Ellery, who was killed in a shootout following a pursuit with a suspect, and that was actually the first time ever that a law enforcement officer had been killed in the history of the county. But it was, to me, that was really, and understand what I'm saying. Nobody likes it when a person dies, but I felt privileged to be able to use that opportunity to tell this man's story and to tell the story of how not only people all across North Dakota, but people in law enforcement from all across the country came to North Dakota to show support for their fellow man who had given his life supporting his community. I mean, there was NYPD, there was police from Chicago, there were police from Canada, law enforcement, so that descended on the community college in Belcourt for his memorial service. So I would say that's probably in terms of like professional, like things I've covered, that was probably the high point of my career. And there's been, a few other stories as well. We had the murder trials for the suspects who were convicted of killing Angela Wilder, the murder conspiracy case. That was featured on Dateline. Dateline crew came here to cover the Richie and Cynthia Wilder, the two people that conspired to kill Angela Wilder. I was fortunate to be able to get an Emmy nomination for my coverage of the Colt Ellery proceedings. But yeah, those are kind of the big ones that come to mind. Not necessarily the most cheery stuff, but it was the most important stuff. So, and when that kind of stuff happens here in North Dakota, it's a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal anywhere, but it's especially a big deal here because, knock on wood, we don't have a lot of hard crime.
When you're objectively reporting just a Wilder case as an example, Cynthia wasn't always at the forefront of that case as it went down. And when you were talking to her before she had her larger role in it, did you see like the end game coming at all, just based on like she was like really sad when the first motions of just Richie were happening,
No, she duped a lot of people. And, I've told people as well, when we were covering Richie's trial, for those of you who don't know, Richie is the one who actually carried out the killing. And then we later found out that his current wife, Cynthia, had helped him kind of plan the killing of his ex-wife, Angela, who was a nursing student in Minot. We never fully got like a clear-cut motive on the killing, but during Richie's trial, Cynthia, nothing was uncovered about Cynthia, but we learned later on that the investigators had their suspicions about her. But, me and the other news outlets, we were in court, and Cynthia was sitting 5 feet away from me in the courthouse for most of the trial, furiously taking notes. And little did I know, then after he was convicted, me and the other news outlets in town, we interviewed her. And, she said, she still believed he was innocent. She stood by him. And then, some time went by. Whenever there's a big case, there's an amount of time for a pre-sentence, what they call pre-sentence investigation. So then he was sentenced. The trial was in December. He was sentenced the following May. And then like a week after he was sentenced, they arrested her. And we were like, holy cow. So they arrested her, and then all this stuff came out that then they had like a friend of hers that was in town that he basically acted as he had some suspicions or something, so he acted as I guess a narc, if you will, and they bugged him, and he drove around with her, and she spilled the beans to him, and she confessed everything. So it was just really amazing and mind-blowing, and the fact that some of the footage that I shot, the interview with her, and then some of the courtroom footage as well, made it in that Dateline special. It's just, I remember when I was speaking with the Dateline people, they would say, I said, I can't believe this happened here, and they say, everybody says that, no matter how small their community is. So
all of our on-air staff that we have right now isn't originally from Minot, so everybody's taking the time, maybe a couple times a week, to call home and check in on everything. We're taping this on Father's Day. You just got done Skyping with your family back home. And kind of like the tie-in that I'm wondering about is, obviously, you've had to cover crime on the local level. You've had to pull crime topic stories, localize them from a national to a Minot area level of news. And so when you get a chance to talk with your family, your dad's a retired Milwaukee police officer, what's that kind of communication like where you're just, he'll ask you, Joe, how was work this week? And it's a bunch of crime stuff, and, he's experienced in that.
Yeah, we kind of bond in that regard. He is interested in the crime that does happen here. We hope that Minot is as safe a community as it can be, but crime does happen here. And already in 2020, they threw out the rule book for the year 2020. I don't have to tell anybody that. In 2020, we've already had, if my math is right, at least 4 homicides in Minot, and we're not even at the halfway point of the year. So when these incidents do happen, and it's unfortunate that they do happen, but when they do happen, I do call home and tell them about it and say, they're curious as to is the suspect in custody? What happened? It is weird in a sense because, I love my hometown of Milwaukee, but Milwaukee they have shootings every day and they have murders almost every day. So, it's Milwaukee in a sense is a microcosm of Chicago in a sense. So it is kind of weird because what happens here pales in comparison to what happens in Milwaukee. So then when I bring up what happens here, my folks will say, well, we saw this on the news and this is what we see every day. So I always kind of keep that perspective in mind when I'm approaching, our coverage of
of crime here, and it does make me grateful that I live in Minot because, like I said, knock on wood, this is a relatively safe place.
How old were you when your dad retired?
Oh, you're making me do math here, Ben Barr.
Okay, yeah. He retired, I think, with 37 years on the job. So he's been retired from the city of Milwaukee. It was either near the end of my high school or in the middle of my college that he retired. So he's been out of the game for, at least in the city of Milwaukee, for a little over a decade now. But he is still technically a police officer. He works in for a small village in the suburbs of Milwaukee. But he also teaches law enforcement as well. So he's retired from his main law enforcement job.
And obviously, the bigger cities have just more problems and just sheer numbers, like you were talking about. What was it like? Maybe just sending him off to work every day, and then when he comes home, like, was he open a lot with you guys about like
Sometimes he was. He would tell us some pretty crazy stories about some of the things that he saw on the job for law enforcement. I know I didn't hear a lot of it, probably because he just didn't want to tell us. But he did see a lot of crazy stuff. He would tell us crazy stories about busting into people's homes and some of the violence that he saw. He was also on the Milwaukee Police Tactical Unit for a number of years. And those guys, they really see a lot of the bad stuff, because those are the guys who literally are knocking down the doors and breaking in and getting in to stop people from causing harm to other people or themselves. But it's a dangerous job. And I know my mom has said that, it did, over the years, change him a lot. I think it hardened him a little. But it also, I think, made him aware to a lot of the bad things that happen in life. That's something I think that we take for granted with police officers, that especially in bigger cities, that they're just exposed to bad stuff on a weekly, if not daily basis, and it can change your view of the world.
A little bit of a lighter side thing with your job. Obviously, locally and in the viewing area, you're a really well-known person, and you work your butt off, man. So how do you kind of balance just the work and the social life? I mean, go out and have a good time ever, but I mean, people know who you are all the time. What's that been like?
How do I balance my social life? Well, when I'm
people think they're close to you because they see you on TV and that stuff too.
Yeah, that's true.
When I try to a lot recently. I've been trying to keep to myself, just because, well, we've all kind of had to because of what's going on in the world. But I do kind of lay low a lot, just because I find that with everything that's been going on, I need to kind of unplug from that, and I need some solace, if you will. So I do a lot of stuff around the house by myself. I've been getting into reading a lot more. I've been reading a lot more books recently, and I also, watch. Obviously, you and Ben, you and I will watch TV, or we'll watch some marathon on Netflix or something along those lines. I have a feeling you're going to be asking me about that later on. But I've been doing a lot of that. When we weren't in a pandemic, I grew into the role of embracing the fact that I was a public figure. I'm relatively humble about myself, and I don't see myself as a celebrity, but when you're on TV, you kind of have to embrace that. And when I'm out in public, I'll be nice and talk with people, and I'll socialize with people, and that's kind of how you find out a lot of news stories, frankly.
What's been kind of like some tough calls that you have to make as a news director? Obviously, it's an era where people talk about fake news, social media comments, people thinking a story is a story, whether it is or it isn't. Just any kind of ethical things. What kind of comes across your desk in that regard?
One of the big things I've noticed with my job is some of the things that I end up not doing. That's the toughest stuff. I have to exercise some restraint, because, as I'm sure you know, and things that we post on social media can, if it's like overtly political or something along those lines, it can get us in trouble. So, I've had people post comments on my Facebook page, my professional page, or my professional Twitter,
about a story and it's just I just share a news story. I don't share anything that I think is necessarily biased. I just share things that I think are worthy of reporting on. And people comment on it, or they'll send me a message about, why are you covering this, or why aren't you covering this? And I'll be tempted to respond, and then I'll literally type a comment, and then I'll delete it because I realize, you know what? Sometimes in life, you just got to let it be and let people voice their opinions. They have a right to that. This is America, and I have to be careful to not enter the fray too much because our job is to be the fly in the wall and to report on what's going on in the world and let people make up their minds for themselves. So to me, that's the biggest challenge is making sure I'm not doing things when I think it's appropriate not to.
Something that a lot of people might not assume about you is that you used to, I don't know if you got it from your dad being a cop or whatever, but you used to work security at different events.
Yeah.
What were some of the big things that you've done, and any kind of crazy stories from keeping everybody at bay?
Yeah. So believe it or not, yeah, Ben is right. In a previous life, TV Joe was I did security at. I worked for my dad, a colleague of his, ran a private security company, and they were hired out to work security at a number of music festivals. So each summer for about 6 or 7 years, I did security at the main event that we covered every year was this thing called Country Thunder. They have one in Wisconsin. I think they had one in Arizona as well. And I think they still had it this year, or they're still going to have it this year despite the pandemic. But anyway, we would cover this, and it's right on the border of Wisconsin and Illinois. It's in Kenosha County, Wisconsin, in a little town called Twin Lakes. And it's this field with a giant bowl, and they would set up a grandstand. And for 4 days in July, we would work like 12-hour shifts there at this thing for 4 days. We'd make some pretty good money, but it's just fascinating to. It was exhausting, but it was good. There's a lot of good money in security, but I would be able to do security. I'd be like right up by stage for concerts for Tim McGraw. We were by Taylor Swift, Carrie Underwood. There was Dierks Bentley was in there. There was a handful of other entertainers that you get to hear some good music, but we had a job to do crowd control. I remember one of the things with security, there's never enough security guards. No matter how many people we were always understaffed, but no matter how many security guards you would have, there'd never be enough. Some of the people for that, some of the funny things that I remember in hindsight, is so the people would travel to Twin Lakes for this country music festival, and like earlier in the day, there'd be a campground, and then there'd be the concert venue, and they'd be separated. So the people would be out camping. They'd probably get like 1 night's worth of sleep in 4 nights, okay? Because they'd be partying all night, they'd be partying and drinking all night in the campgrounds, and then during the day they would come into the concert area, and they would party in the concert area, and then you'd have the main act later in the evening. So like during the day when we'd have to check them and make sure they're not bringing in their own beverages or bringing in knives or anything like that. Sometimes if it rained overnight, the campgrounds would get really muddy. And how do I put this? They didn't shower a lot. So, they had some portable showers there, but they didn't bathe a lot. So, sometimes in the morning, if it rained the night before, these people would be coated in mud as they'd be walking into the campground. So, we'd be trying to do we didn't really do a whole lot of pat downs, but if we had to do pat downs, we'd have to check their chairs to see if they were sneaking in beer. But, we look at one another like, Jesus Christ. Like, they looked like the Walking Dead.
You didn't want to get your hands muddy.
Well, no. And it was just like, oh, my God. But, yeah. Ugh. I remember that. Just people would be walking around, and they'd be coated in mud. It's like, oh, my God. Just some of the stuff. We every now and then, we would end up having that card people at some of the liquor tents, the beer tents that they'd have. And every now and then, you get some like 17-year-old that's trying to pass off an ID. It looks nothing like her. It's like, come on. Like, if you're at least try,
Yeah. You think they have a better chance.
Yeah.
So, try to steer it a little bit into some sports topics right off the bat.
Right.
Obviously, your life has been crazy different with COVID, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
Covering it within your role. At least we're still working and all that stuff. Not a lot of people could say that all the way straight through with the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
But in a sports-related question, obviously they've been on hiatus for months on end now. But I'm curious to get your opinion on this scenario, if it would ever be considered. So obviously in the off time, the documentaries were pushed up for the 30 for 30. The Last Dance was going to be on after the NBA Finals when it's just baseball only and stuff. So obviously there was a lot of demand for it, and now we'll see sports running into basically almost midway of the NFL season if the NFL season gets on time. So I'm curious, say if there was a more consistent longer break in sports, not this long, but say if you get to like an all-star break for hockey or basketball that is longer, which means instead of the season ending in mid-June, you get to maybe almost the end of July anyway, that would put you right into like the NFL preseason. And say, what if they put all the 30 for 30s in that month? Would you consider that as a fan? Would that be a good idea?
To like put all the 30 for 30s after the season wrap up?
Say like the All-Star break, instead of being like 4 or 5 days long, is like a month long.
Yeah.
And I mean, like there was already like load management concerns even in the NBA. So like athletes get a longer break there, and you just put all the super popular documentaries right in there. And then when like the NBA Finals are over, you pretty much go straight into football season rather than having like 2 months of baseball only.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea, frankly. I think ESPN should do something like that. I love those 30 for 30 documentaries. I mean, I know the Jordan one, The Last Dance, wasn't technically a 30 for 30. It was kind of a standalone. But that was really entertaining. I tell you, one of my favorite 30 for 30s, I don't know if you saw this one, was the one about the day that in, what was it, 94, when...
June 17th.
June 17th, 1994, the Bronco chase. Because that day there was an NBA Finals game, there was baseball, there was the Bronco chase, there was Arnold Palmer's last round of golf at the
U.S. Open.
U.S. Open, yeah.
It's always Father's Day weekend. Which I thought was weird this year, considering the U.S. Open from the outset was postponed, but like now that the PGA's back, so I think they're playing like some RBC tournament this week, but I mean, whatever.
Yeah. But like, I really enjoyed that one because if you watch that documentary, there's no narration. They just let like the news highlights of the day progress on, and you watch it, and then it ends really cool with, little did you know that like well before that, Arnold Palmer and OJ had done a commercial together for some, I forget, it was like, I forget what it was even for, what the product was, but they did a commercial together for something, and it really wraps the whole thing around it. But yeah, that would be a great idea if they just boom, 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 pounded out all those.
And that was the same way that OJ Made in America was shot. There wasn't any narration in that either.
No, there wasn't. It was just all
super effective.
Yeah.
So talking about just having the tail end of the NBA Finals, obviously a team out of the East is your Milwaukee Bucks that
Fear the dare.
I mean, I don't care about any kind of take about someone's momentum stopping. It looks like the Bucks are the class of the conference right now.
Yeah.
So just obviously, I think when they get back to playing, as long as there's no weird like COVID sit-outs among the players at the bubble, you gotta like their chances. But still, how frustrating was it to have the season stop, considering the Bucks were still rolling, even though they should be good when things start up again.
It was extremely frustrating. It was, as a Milwaukee sports fan, we've had, the Packers have had their success, and Packers fans, I will admit, have been largely spoiled. But, with Milwaukee sports over the past handful of years, it feels like we finally turned a corner with the Brewers and with the Bucks. So, and with the Bucks, we were all kind of saying, boy, this might be the year. This might be the year, especially now that, the Raptors, their big guy moved to the Western Conference. So, maybe with them out of the way, maybe this is the Bucks' time to make a move on the Eastern Conference, so we can get into the NBA Finals. LeBron's out of the Eastern Conference now. So, this felt like this was the year. And, they might still do it with this bubble that they're going to have in Orlando or wherever it is. They might still very well do it. I kind of feel like with the Bucks, you're almost damned if you do, damned if you don't, because it might not work out. And then we're going to be cursing ourselves and saying, wait till next season. And then if it does work out, I suppose all the fans are going to say, well, this was a shortened season, so this doesn't count. They were playing in some big gym on the Disney property. So, but I mean, it's frustrating as a Bucks fan because, we want to, I think Giannis is going to stay in Milwaukee. I think he's got it made here. Well, I hope that the money doesn't lure him away, but money's lured people away before, so just fingers crossed that this season works out for the Bucks.
Where do you rank Giannis among the best Bucks ever already?
It's hard. I mean, look, we had, I remember I kind of grew up watching Ray Allen, and then when they had what they called the quote unquote Big Three, the Bucks were one of the. I know a lot of people dispute this, but the Bucks, I contend, were one of the first teams that had a quote unquote Big Three. They at least called it a Big Three. They had that was Ray Allen, Glenn Robinson, and Sam Cassell. And we always say that was the year that the Sixers won the East and then lost to the Lakers. We were we always say in Milwaukee we were a Glenn Robinson jump shot away from making the NBA Finals. And then we'll never know what would have happened because we were 2-0 against the Lakers during the regular season. So a lot of Milwaukee sports fans think we might have won the NBA title this year had we gotten past Allen Iverson. But I would say, in terms of, to answer your question, where does Giannis rank? I got a soft spot in my heart for Ray Allen because he was so good for us, but Ray Allen wasn't a great defender. He was a great shooter. I mean, you got to talk about Kareem. You got to talk about Oscar Robertson, Sidney Moncrief. Who am I missing here? Ray Allen. I would say Giannis has got to be top 4 at least. He still has to spend a little more time and build up more,
And if he's a career Buck, like some of those guys weren't.
Yeah, exactly. Some of those guys, they went on to other places. Like Ray Allen went on to the Heat and and the Celtics. But
and Kareem leaving.
Kareem left. Kareem still is in the top list. But I honestly think probably the best Buck of all time, probably Oscar Robertson, just because of his pedigree with the team. But Giannis, if Giannis commits to here, then I would say he may end up being the best Buck ever. But they got to get a title out of him. They have to. He's a once in a generation talent. He's like LeBron, but he's lankier than LeBron. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He can bound a little bit more.
Oh yeah.
So the thing is, the Bucks, the way the East is right now, especially, like they should be expected to win 60-some games. But at the end of the day, the biggest games of the year, you got to win a tough 4 out of 7 games a few times to win the NBA championship.
Yeah.
As good as the Bucks were last year, obviously Toronto was insane. What do you think the team still needs to be able to improve on to win each playoff series that it's in?
Clutch defense. They gotta be able to play clutch defense in moments when it counts, and that's what bit them in the NBA playoffs. Because when you get to the playoffs, especially into the conference finals and then the NBA finals, really all bets are off, and you got to be able to. That's one thing that the Bucks team largely lacked was that clutch playoff experience. Ben's cat Fancy is pawing at my backpack right now.
Nice.
But yeah, they got to be able to learn how to do that, and that's one thing that I hope doesn't end up being their Achilles heel is that clinching the big game. Like for example, when they get in the playoffs, even though. What's the big guy's name that was on the Raptors who's with the Spurs now? Or not the Spurs, the Clippers.
Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, Kawhi. Kawhi went to the Clippers. Now, even with Kawhi gone, the Raptors still have some guys that know on the team that know how to win big games.
And Nurse is a legit coach.
And Nick Nurse is a legit coach. He's a good coach. So, I mean, the team is almost as good as they were last year, even without Kawhi, if not better. So, that's the thing that the Bucks need to do. Clutch defense in big moments in the playoffs.
You were able to take a little bit of my thunder away when you brought up the Bucks run until they played the Sixers in the 0-1 Eastern Conference Finals. But nowadays, the shoe is kind of on the other foot. I'm jealous of Milwaukee because it seems, and even though there's been no basketball for a while, when it was going on, the Sixers seem to be so freaking dramatic where they have these superstar players, and it's always about, well, how do they fit together? Even though they're winning enough, it's always just dramatic. You get a team in Milwaukee that has the superstar, a coach with 160-win season before he even got there. I believe that was like the Hawks' great years of Budenholzer.
Yeah.
And it seems like they have the right supporting cast. It all fits together so well. And now I have the Embiid Simmons thing. I mean, are they ever going to fit? The coach and ownership group, they don't really make it work all the time. The front office guys are sometimes weird. You just look at Jimmy Butler. He's one of my favorite players, and he leaves. And when things come out, like, you don't really blame him as, like, the ownership group is like, well, do you think you'd be okay with handling Jimmy? Handle me, okay.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm out. I don't blame you for going to Miami as these owners try to buy, like, the Devils and the New York Mets. That's like a rabbit hole. Why are the Sixers so dramatic?
I don't know. You tell me.
Look, okay. So, I don't know. There's just something about Philly sports. I kind of feel like with Philly sports, See, Milwaukee doesn't really have this problem because the Packers are Wisconsin's team, but they're not in Milwaukee. I think with Philly sports, I don't know if this is the answer to your question, but they kind of, the Sixers. Maybe you would know better than I do. You're living in the shadow of the Eagles and the Phillies and probably the Flyers too. So they gotta like make a name for themselves, and I don't know. I feel like none of those guys on the Sixers team has just really taken a hold of. Like you watch some of the plays that Giannis does for the Bucks. They're truly breathtaking. I mean, he's such a good like top to bottom athlete. He'll make plays that just take your breath away. The Sixers, no offense, Ben, but the Sixers, like they have like a bunch of really talented guys, but there's no one on the team that is just a breathtaking talent. That's just can really that the rest of the team maybe can look up to. Like they got a good core, but it's always like I feel like they need one more guy. I don't know.
It shouldn't seem tough to go against a team like Toronto or Boston when you have two players like Embiid and Simmons. But here we are. So to wrap up the NBA talk here, obviously you're a fan of just the pure shooting prowess of the Warriors, and they got so many terrible injuries handed to them. But in that sense, obviously it's a casual franchise for a lot of people that can afford their tickets nowadays.
Yeah.
How easy was it to hop off the bandwagon this year?
I mean, it was relatively easy to hop off the bandwagon for now. I'll be a fan when they're back. I have a feeling the Warriors are actually going to be really good next year. By the way, the Golden State Warriors, for those of you who don't know, I've been a
Warriors fan for a few years as well. I'm mainly a Bucks fan, but I cheer on the Warriors just because when Steph Curry was playing for Davidson, he played Wisconsin, and when I was in college, I was sitting in my dorm room, and he ran Wisconsin out of the building. He hit so many damn threes. And from that, I was like, this kid's going to be good in the NBA. And he turned out to be really good in the NBA. So I kind of became a Steph Curry fan and a de facto Warriors fan. I will say I think that they're just dumb lucky in the sense that like this season ending the way it was for them was probably the greatest thing because there's no point for the Warriors to play the rest of the season. So they just might as well sit on the sideline and let their players be good. One thing I will say too about the NBA stuff though, we wrap this up. One thing I noticed in watching that The Last Dance documentary, comparing to, and maybe this plays into the Sixers right now, I don't know, is that like the whole league in general just does not play defense the way that like those Bulls teams of the Jordan League played defense. And even the teams that the Bulls were playing, like the Celtics, the Jazz, the Pistons when they had that rivalry with the Pistons, the Lakers, Magic when Jordan won his first title. Like those NBA teams, they really played good defense. You just don't see that anymore in the NBA.
It's not a calling card for across an entire team anymore.
No, it's not. No, it's just not. When back in that time, I can't believe I'm saying that the late '90s was back in the day, but it was. Is that was a calling card for that could get you to the NBA Finals. Now it's you got to be launching 40-foot three-pointers.
And ironically, after this season, it's going to be the highest draft choice that the Warriors would have had, unless they get screwed in the NBA draft lottery. They've been able to draft so well, but I don't want to talk about them anymore because, they're them. So to the NFL, what was your take on the Jordan Love pick? We're going to give you the easy question right off the top.
Well, I tell you what, I think our GM, Gutekunst, Brian, whatever his name is, he's got some cojones of steel because that is a move that could not only rile up the fan base but could also create rustles in the locker room.
But I tell you what, I honestly think that it wasn't an attractive move at the moment it happened. But I'll tell you what, I think it was actually a really good move because Aaron Rodgers is no spring chicken anymore. They need to start planning for the future. So if they can do something similar to what they did with, as messy as the move from Favre to Rodgers was, where you can have, if they could do something where they could have this Jordan Love sit on the bench for a couple years and kind of train under Aaron Rodgers before Rodgers finally either moves on or retires, it could be an ideal situation. I'll tell you, Love is a great player. He has a hell of a highlight reel from was it Utah State. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I think it was a good pick. I think assuming that he lives up to the billing, the fans will embrace him. But I see a parallel to kind of what they did with Favre to Rodgers.
And the Packers have had good offenses over the years. Have you been surprised that the skill positions haven't been coming as much in the first round. I think Devontae Adams was at the tail end of his first round. But pretty much, if you look over pretty much Aaron Rodgers' career, it's been pretty much quarterback heir apparents in the first round for Green Bay.
Yeah, I mean the Packers just don't seem to build a lot of offense in the draft other than they've gotten lucky, if you want to call it that, with quarterbacks. It seems like mainly defense has been the name of the game, and they haven't, like they do need wide receivers to build, but it's crazy that Super Bowl run that they made several years back. God, that's more than several years back. What was that? 10 years ago now? 10, 11 years ago now. That all those guys are long gone, and Rodgers is, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the only guy left on the team. But yeah, they just, for some reason, for whatever reason, they've never made major offensive moves short of the quarterbacks that they've drafted. It's always been kind of defense and whatnot. So I don't know.
You guys have had the heyday of Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers for about 25 years.
Most of my life.
How satisfied are you with the 2 championships? Do you expect more as a fan?
Yeah, we've expected more as fans. It is like we're proud of those Super Bowl titles, but in the same respect, it has been disappointing because we did, a lot of Packers fans and believe, and I'm one of them, that we wasted a lot of the latter years after those 2 Super Bowl appearances with Favre. We weren't aggressive enough in trying to make a run at a Super Bowl. And to a sense, it's manifested with Rodgers as well. But we still got some years left with him. It's tough now because look at the way the league is now. Now you got the Chiefs, who are really good, the Niners, who are really, I mean, even if we want to get out of the NFC, we got to get past the Niners. We don't know what the Buccaneers are going to be like now that they have Brady. So it's, the monster's different.
Are they starting to get a little bit more aggressive in free agency?
I think so. Yeah, that was the big MO with the guy who was the GM before Gutekunst.
Ted Thompson.
Ted Thompson, yeah. He was very conservative with free agency. It was always built through the draft. But I think that they're starting to get a little more, like we got, was it Devin Funchess now? So like guys like that we're building in free agency. At some point they have to adjust to the way that the league does things, or otherwise you're going to be left behind. So yeah.
How about the first year though with Matt LaFleur? It's not all bad going 13-3 in year one. Do you see that coming at all? And then at the same time, you kind of mentioned what Gutekunst had been able to make that pick. How about LaFleur being on board with that Love pick? He's only a head coach for a year, and he's already looking that far ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we thought that. I figured that the Packers are going to be good. I didn't know if they were going to be 13-3 good, but it turned out to be a really good first-year campaign. That can be a blessing in disguise for a young coach because, it's a little bit like Sean McVay in L.A. He had so much early success that now the bar is set pretty high for him. So now he has to live up to that. But yeah, he was on board with the Jordan Love pick, and I think he's in the same vein as Gutekunst. They're kind of shrewd sports guys that they understand the game and they understand how it works. But the Packers fans, the fan base has largely accepted him as the coach. So so far so good with him.
You kind of said how you maybe would have expected a few more titles, but the Packers fan base is going to be one of those that always packs Lambeau Field. It's a hallowed ground, man. They're going to support the team no matter what, David Putty type thing,
Yeah, got to support the team.
Do you feel the front office sees, like, hey, we might have more forgiveness because, like, our fans are going to be there, our wait list is, like, decades long?
Yeah, you mean like maybe a little complacent? Is that what you're saying with like trying to vie for a title because of the loyalty of the fans?
Yeah, do you think fan loyalty affects any way that the team makes its moves at all?
I don't think so. I mean, because if you think about it, like here's the thing, and I lived through this. At the time, we don't look at it this way now because of the way things panned out. But at the time when Favre when Favre retired, and I'm doing air quotes here, you can't see that, but when Favre retired and then tried to come out of retirement, and the team had said, look, Brett, we already have moved on with Aaron. So
how soon were you over it, like the Brett retirement charade?
I was over it pretty quickly. I mean, it was kind of like, okay, this is it got the drama it was the top story on the news every night, and it's like, this is crazy that like this whole ordeal with like the NFL quarterback is like your top story every day, but it was a big deal. But like at the time, it was very controversial and people didn't want it. They wanted the Packers to take Favre back, but I think I give the Packers credit at the time. They made a not so sexy decision to, no, we're going to move forward with this guy because we are already getting him ready for the season, and it would be detrimental to stick with the guy who had previously said he retired. So in hindsight, we all realized, well, that probably was the right decision, but at the time, it didn't seem like a smart decision. So I don't think, my answer to your question is, I don't think that the Packers look at fan loyalty as much when they're making decisions. They make decisions on what's best for the team.
Yeah, how about letting go of Mike McCarthy in the middle of the season?
Yeah, you know what? I don't know if I would have had the balls to make that call, but I think they realized it was probably the right thing to do. I mean, I think they lost to, the Cardinals? That's what in that week, that's like, that was.
They had a rough
struggle.
time with the Jets that year, too, but they won the game. I remember that.
Yeah, it was, I think they realized, look, as much as Mike's done for the team, they had to move in a different direction. Those moves are not easy. I will say it was classy enough for the Packers that they gave Mike, they gave him an opportunity. They don't always do this without going coaches. They gave Mike an opportunity to say goodbye to the team. He said goodbye to the team in the locker room and thank him for the time. So, and of course now Mike's doing fine. He landed on his feet. He's
just falls backwards into the coaching Cowboys. That's nice.
Well, we all kind of knew that Mike McCarthy was going to get a coaching job somewhere else. It was just his time. Yeah, his time had come, and now he's in Jerry world.
How about your perspective on Wisconsin Badgers football right now? And Coach Paul Chryst, how impressed have you been with him? Because I knew him from his time at Pitt. He's had some really good bowl wins with Wisconsin, but really just flirting with 500 at Pittsburgh, and it doesn't seem that Wisconsin can always get like the sexy hire at head coach. But I mean,
no.
He's been solid, man.
No, he's been very solid, and he's done a great job. I hope that they hold on to Paul Chryst for a while. It's assuming they keep winning. The one thing with Wisconsin that's frustrating is that. So in the 4 years that I was at Wisconsin, I think we had a different starting quarterback every year. That's the thing. It's Wisconsin, really good sports teams, but you know what? It's running back you. They've had Heisman Trophy winning running backs, some of the greatest running backs in college football history, and they've had great defenses. Quarterback's always been average. Excuse me. By the way, for those of you who are listening, you can't see this, but I've been drinking a Miller Lite. I got to do the local prop during the podcast.
Get you through some of the tough questions here.
This podcast is brought to you by.
What would it mean for the Paul Chryst era team for you guys to get a star quarterback like Russell Wilson? You only had him for a year. He steps in and he was awesome with like the program, and pretty much Chryst and Bielema, for that matter, have kind of just ridden the wave of like what Wisconsin's supposed to be all about. Yeah. It's like following it, like the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know what they're going to be. Yeah. You kind of have an idea of what Wisconsin's going to be. If you plug in a star quarterback, what's it going to mean for him?
Well, I think it would make them a playoff contender potentially. It would, and I think that's really the next level for the program, because right now it's all right. We're vying for the Big Ten title. We benefit from not having Ohio State and Penn State and Michigan in our division, but I think being able to recruit quality talent at the quarterback level would make the program a contender for the college football playoff, and that's really the next step for them, is getting into the playoff. Even if they lose in the playoff, I mean, you want to win a championship, but that's the next step for them, is to get into that playoff.
I was surprised that Brett Bielema left for Arkansas, really. I get it that it's an SEC team. It's great to be in that conference. But ever since, Darren McFadden and Felix Jones, and even like the teams that had Ryan Mallett, such an uphill battle it's going to be for Arkansas unless they have like a Pony Excess 30 for 30 that comes out 30 years from now, compared to, Wisconsin's place in the Big Ten. What was up with that move? Why would he leave Wisconsin?
No, how'd that work out for him?
Exactly.
Huh? Not too good.
Bouncy.
Like the bubble boy says on Seinfeld. Not too good. Now he's in a lawsuit over his payout with Arkansas. But you know what? I think he thought that, I'm making a move to the SEC, so it's inherently like a bigger move. But in hindsight, it turned out to be largely a horizontal move, because even though you're moving to a more prolific conference altogether, it wasn't a vertical move for him, because really there's only 2 or 3 teams in the SEC that own that conference. So the Brett Bielema is an essential example of a quintessential example of how the grass is not always greener on the other side.
Did you think the Badgers had the Big Ten championship wrapped up when they played Penn State in 2016? Because I'll tell you what, I thought so. I was watching the game at Tropical Isle in New Orleans, ready to turn it off if Penn State got down too big. I was ready to give up on the Eagles last year when Carson Wentz got hurt.
What year was that again?
It was in 2016. It was
yeah.
the year that Penn State... Look, it's bad for me too. Penn State won the Big Ten championship, beat Ohio State head-to-head. Ohio State still went to the playoff and lost to Clemson 38-0.
They got blown out.
They scored the same amount of points as Penn State.
Penn State should have qualified for the playoff that year. It was terrible.
Watching that game, it looked like the Badgers were going to run away with it, man.
It did, and I think the Wisconsin was going to win that game? Yeah, probably. But, here's the thing. That's why they play the game. What does that coach say? You play to win the game. So, I don't take anything for granted. They play four quarters for a reason.
You said that it's running back you. What can Jonathan Taylor do in the NFL with the Colts? It's a situation where the offensive line is up and coming. They might give him an opportunity to support an aging quarterback in Phillip Rivers. Might be a good spot for him.
It might actually be a good spot for him, because let's face it, they're probably going to have to take some of the load off of Phillip Rivers because he's no spring chicken anymore. So I think he's coming into a good position with the Colts. They've had a lot of good quarterbacks, or they've had good quarterbacks obviously, but they've had good running backs as well with the Colts. So I think the Colts are a really good opportunity for Jonathan Taylor to grow as a player. I really hope that he does grow as a player. I wish we would have gotten one more year out of him at Wisconsin, but unfortunately,
can't blame him.
I can't blame him for taking the jump, because you get an injury and then suddenly like that, if he would have stayed and he would have gotten injured, then you lose all your money, you lose all your future. So. I think he's going to be great for the Colts, frankly. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about your Warrior fandom kind of sprouting from seeing Curry against Wisconsin in March Madness. It seems that the Badgers, no matter how much their regular season goes good or goes bad, no matter what seed they get at the tournament, they always kind of circle the wagons. What makes them a good postseason team?
We're talking football.
We're talking basketball.
Basketball.
Now, yeah.
Well, what's made them a good postseason team? Here's the thing with Wisconsin. So we made those couple Final Four runs, and we made that championship game. Because we had outstanding players with Frank the Tank and with Sam Decker, Slam Decker they called him.
And you beat Villanova as an 8th seed.
We beat Villanova as an 8th seed, and then we beat Kentucky and ruined their perfect season, which was great. And then we should have finished off the perfect season by beating Duke, which we'll never forget that. But aside from those 2 years, the thing with Wisconsin is that it's been a largely defense-oriented game. So, for example, this is the way I look at it. Defense gets you to the NCAA tournament, but offense wins in the NCAA tournament. Because
bonkers plays.
Well, exactly. So, what happens what's happened so often with Wisconsin is they'll get to the NCAA tournament. They'll coast through the first 2 rounds because they play some teams that they're better than. And then either in the Sweet 16 or Elite 8, they'd run into a team that would put up 80 against them and just run them out of the gym. So, that's kind of the way I look at it, is that you got to have really good offense to win in the tournament. But defense kind of gets you there. That makes sense.
It would have been interesting to see what they could have done this year, and you could say the same thing for so many other teams in the tournament year. But how many times do you think Greg Gard should have been fired throughout the season, only for them to earn a share of the Big Ten regular season title somehow?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. It's a long season, and Wisconsin ended up having, the most unconventional Big Ten title championship run of any team. I would not have predicted that they would have won the Big Ten title back in, December or probably even January. But, they somehow went on, a weird hot streak and ended up turning into a halfway decent team. The Big Ten, I think it's fair to say, was a little down. It was, really good, but it was also a little down. That's why there was so much parity. But, Greg Gard, I think part of the reason why Bo Ryan stepped away in the nature that he did
was to give Greg Gard a chance, because Greg Gard, I kind of look at Greg Gard as like a college version of Nick Nurse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's kind of like that longtime basketball guy who's been around a lot. And that's
and you
why
don't want to lose him either.
you don't want to lose him. You want to keep him in the pipeline. So that's why Bo Ryan stepped away like in the middle of the season to give Greg Gard a chance to like become his own coach. And you know, there's been questions. There's been a lot of keyboard warriors that have been posting like, "Oh, we got to get rid of Greg Gard. We got to get rid of Greg Gard." And then look what happens. They win the conference championship. So people, in the words of Aaron Rodgers, people need to relax. Just it'll work out.
I want to give your Brewers the fair shake, too, as you down some more Miller Lite here. Notably, bringing back the old logo and the new uniforms, or the Yelich contract at 9 years at $215 million. What's the bigger deal for the franchise?
You mean like for Yelich? Are you comparing Yelich versus the...
Bringing back the old uniforms. You're wearing it right now.
Yeah, no, I know. Like Yelich versus the old uniforms? It's keeping your talent around. Because here's the thing. You go to Brewers games, half the fans in the stands wear these shirts anyway to the games.
The MB glove logo. You can dress up a pig, but they have to be talented.
Oh, yeah. Okay. But like this logo is the most brilliant. For those of you who don't know, it's the one that looks like the glove. And by the way, when I was a little kid, it took me the longest time to realize that it was an M and a B. Mm-hmm. But I just assumed it was a glove. And then I was like, oh, yeah.
Wait a second.
I had like a moment of catharsis when I was like 9 years old or whatever. And I was like, oh, man, it's actually an M and a B. That's really smart. But now the Brewers brought that back, and it's now the regular logo. What's weird about it is that, so like with the Brewers, I think keeping Yelich as the talent is the better decision. But like with the logo, it is smart to make that move. What's sad is, and it's looking like there's a good chance we might not have baseball this year. If we don't have baseball this year, not only are we not going to get to see the Brewers, because this would have been the first year with the kind of new look uniform with the old logo, but also this was supposed to be the last season that the stadium is called Miller Park. Because next year it's going to be American Family, or the year after, next year it's going to be American Family Field, which American Family Insurance is a Wisconsin-based company. But when I was Skyping with my family earlier, they were like, we're going to go take some pictures at the stadium, because if there's no baseball, they're probably just going to start taking the name off of it, Miller Park.
You go from a beer stadium to a family stadium. Lovely. Way to see Milwaukee really just coming up in just the moral authority finally.
Yeah.
So did you get more joy out of watching the CC Sabathia run with the Brewers, or maybe having Zach Greinke for more?
CC Sabathia, I would say. There was just something about that guy. He just lit up the field.
Tank.
He really was. I remember I went to a game with CC Sabathia was pitching. We actually had, they've changed it a little bit now, but they have like a deck out in left field. Yeah, left field where you can sit, and it was like a TGI Fridays. They've switched hands now, but like you could literally be watching the game outside, and my parents got me some seats out there for my birthday, and it was a CC Sabathia game when he was with the team, and because it's a National League, he was batting, and he hit a home run. He was pitching in the game. We were like, man, this is cool. Like, how often do you see the pitcher hit a home run? So there was just something about CC that, like, in the time that he just lit up, and that was the year that we lost to the Phillies in the playoffs, haha. But I think part of the problem with that was we were riding him so much for the success that like he would be pitching on like 3 days rest, and I think by the time we got to the playoffs, we just had nothing left.
Yeah, for him to give up a grand slam to Shane Victorino, you could tell. He was probably tired.
Yeah, he had nothing left in the tank.
I wasn't going to say anything. Okay. You said it.
I opened the door.
Speaking of something that kind of like really captivates you, is you're a big movie guy. What kind of makes you a movie buff, and the horror genre specifically?
Yeah, I'm kind of much to the chagrin of Ben Barr. I'm a big fan of horror movies. I'm especially like the Conjuring franchise, and the Insidious movies. Love those. I don't know. I love movies that make you jump.
Big Patrick Wilson guy.
Yeah, it's
Scream King.
Yeah, he's basically kind of like a modern day Scream King. But I am excited for the new Conjuring movie that's coming out. It's supposed to be coming out, I think, later this year. If we're going to have it this year with movies, but I don't know. It's just ever since I was a little boy. I think it's because like when I was younger. I know this sounds a little weird, but when I was younger, I saw the original Halloween with Michael Myers, like the 1978 one, which is kind of like if you watch it, it's a crappily made movie, because like there's things about it that you can tell. Like for example, it's not fall like in the movie. They filmed it like in the middle of the summer somewhere in California. That's why all the trees are green. But like, and then there's like a prop guy. If you've ever watched a making of Halloween, that's like throwing leaves in front of the camera. It's like legit like. But the thing is with that movie, it's become like a cult film, and it's actually like really good. And I think that's what got my interest in horror movies early on. I also like to, little side note, my sister Missy, who's 6 years older than I am, even to this day, she still hates Michael Myers with a fiery passion. So every time Halloween rolls around, I like to scare the bejesus out of her and send her some like Michael Myers meme or something.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with me and the nun meme.
Oh yeah. Ben doesn't like the nuns.
What's
so.
more laughably crappy put together? The Halloween old movie, or maybe the quest that they had in Wizard of Oz?
Maybe the quest in the Wizard of Oz is probably more crappily
When you
put
were young, there's even creepy parts in that movie with the witch and the flying monkeys.
Yeah, there are.
But it's not a horror movie.
What's interesting about like Michael Myers is that for some reason that story just really appeals to people, because if you think about it, it's resonated now for at least 3 different generations, because you had the original Halloween movies, and then you had those movies kind of in between that there was kind of like Michael Myers was kind of cultish, and then Jamie Lee Curtis came back 20 years later, and then she's now come back 40 years later. So it's just, there's something about that story that just appeals to us as moviegoers that we just keep wanting. Like I fully believe that even after they make these 3 movies, 20 years from now, they're going to be making more Michael Myers movies, and maybe she won't be a part of it, but
she'll be the great-great-grandma.
I know.
Time. She's like played multiple generations.
Yeah, I know. She'll be chasing Michael Myers down the street with a cane.
What's been the best horror movie that you forced me to watch on Netflix?
All right, it had to be. What was it? Veronica.
Veronica.
To me, it was Veronica. I know you like Kunalanic.
Yeah, Kunalanic. The both foreign language ones. Sabrina was really good, but didn't really hold up over it.
Yeah, but Veronica was creepy as hell. Oh my god! Like from start, and I agree with this with Ben. It dragged on a little bit after a while, but Kunalanic was decent. But there's been some other that have been kind of underwhelming as well. Like what was it? In the Tall Grass was billed a lot.
Yeah, that had Patrick Wilson in it too.
That was, and it was a little bit of a buzzkill.
So what convinced you to finally get a Netflix account after all this time? I got you that Roku 3 years ago. You finally got your apartment cleaned up enough to get it plugged into your television, or what?
Yeah. So I finally was able to.
I wasn't going to share you my password with Charlie Young. I was gracious, but not with you.
Whatever.
Of course not. No.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Password is like. Eagles fan 69 or whatever. I don't know. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But so I finally got to the point where I was like, you know what? I can't always be crashing at Ben's to mooch off of his Netflix. Because he's not going to share me his password because he's a cheapskate. So I guess I'll have to set. I literally just, for those of you listening, from the date we're recording this, I just set up a Netflix account like last night in the last 24 hours. So it's 2020, June 2020, and I'm first now setting up a Netflix. But I finally got it, so I'll be able to watch all the horror movies that Ben doesn't want to watch because he's pissing himself.
No longer living in the past.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have to be just horror. I think you have a couple of answers in different genres for this. But what do you think has been the best movie franchise of all time?
Oh, God, best movie franchise. Well, are you looking at more modern movies or like current ones?
I can break it up if it makes it easier for these Milwaukee guys to figure it out.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we? So I guess with regards to like. Best current movies. Boy, that's tough. I go back to horror. Like the Conjuring franchise has been really good, but like all time, I would have to say it would be either like Star Wars or The Godfather. I know that Jaws was technically a franchise because they made several Jaws movies. I think like Star Wars. Because Star Wars has just been so successful for so long. Star Wars and The Godfather, like whenever AMC is showing The Godfather, I'm going to make him an offer. I can watch it on Saturday.
What's been the better addition to a franchise? Like the Daisy Ridley era Star Wars movies or the Chris Pratt Jurassic Park movies?
I think that the Daisy Ridley Star Wars ones have been more meaningful to the franchise. I think they've done a very good job with those. But the Chris Pratt Jurassic Park ones have been very good. I will say I can't believe I didn't say that because Jurassic Park is Jurassic Park is technically like I call it my favorite movie of all time.
You're a Jeff Goldblum fanboy. I can't believe you didn't say it right off the bat.
Yeah. What does he say? Must go faster. Must go faster. But yeah, kind of an interesting thing about Jurassic Park. So Jurassic Park came out in what, 93 or 94?
Yeah, right around that.
94, I want to say. So, no, it was 93. It was 93. So, 93, not to be a buzzkill to the conversation, but there is some profound meaning to this. So, 93 was a tough year for my family. 93, I was 4.5 years old. That was the year that my brother died. My brother died in January of that year. And it was tough for us. I remember my birthday is in August, and every year growing up in August, my family, up until until I think I became an adult, we would have a big kind of family get together, and it was a way to not only celebrate my birthday but to get the family all together on a summer night. And that year was the year Jurassic Park came out. So one of my adult cousins, all my cousins on my dad's side are older than I am. So one of my cousins took me and my sister and maybe one or two other people to the theater to see Jurassic Park, kind of to get out of the house and as a little bit of a distraction. And I think that I was kind of like infatuated with dinosaurs, and that kind of laid the groundwork for Jurassic Park. It was good for us as kids because we were dealing, especially me. My sister handled it, I think, a little better than I did. Although I know she struggled with it as well, but it was tough for me, as a little boy, because I was confused as to what had happened with my brother. He had a heart defect. And he died like right before he was about to get a transplant.
Doesn't
California.
Doesn't Star Wars mean something to your family too?
Yes, it does.
Regard? Yeah.
It does. When my brother was a little boy, because my brother was the oldest of the family, he was born in want to say 76. That sounds right. Yeah, that's right. 76, 82, and I was born in 88. We're all separated by 6 years. And my mom went with him to see the original movies when they were in theaters for the first time. So. To kind of be able to, like, for example, I went to one of the Star Wars movies with my mom and dad when I went home for Christmas. It's cool, like, generationally, to be able to, like, still live that experience with my family when that's a cherished memory that they had with my brother. Yeah, but Jurassic Park means a lot to me as well. So I think that those are kind of the big franchises, really.
Mm-hmm. So from one animal franchise. And discussing it with another well-known animal in the Minot area, Joe Skurzewski. Fresh off your Netflix account finally coming to pass, what are kind of your big takeaways from the Tiger King drama?
Oh, boy. Here we go.
Well, one of the biggest takeaways I have is that I didn't realize that these, like, off-the-road zoos were as big a deal as they are. I didn't know, too, that there were, like, more tigers in the world in captivity than there were in the wild, which kind of sheds light on a lot of the
extinct, like near extinct.
Well, yeah,
issues,
it's like so there's and as crazy as Joe Exotic came across, he's not alone. There's other crazy zookeepers that are like this, like the guy in South Carolina, and then Jeff Lowe. And it's like this is their whole lives, and these people they create this fantasy world and this bubble within themselves. The other thing too, then this was brought up in another podcast, Ben, that you and I were listening to, is so like now Jeff Lowe wants to build another zoo. Well, don't these people have any other like line of income or any other ideas for their whole livelihood is building a zoo?
So many of the minor characters you could like franchise even deeper than just Joe versus Carol. Like you're looking at the guy that was like an inspiration for like one of like what Scarface?
Yeah,
right?
The guy in Florida.
You could have gone deeper into like the cult that Doc Antle is up to.
Yeah, I know
all that stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, you only have so much time, I guess.
And I mean, I know, who did they cast? Matthew McConaughey. They already cast him, I think.
Oh,
as
really?
Joe.
That's news to me.
I think they cast Matthew McConaughey as the next Joe Exotic, and it's like you watch this and you think, There were side characters that actually were very sympathetic, like the worker that lost part of their arm.
Yep.
A couple of the other workers that were just there doing their jobs and didn't.
How crude they shot that scene, by the way. Like, Joe was there with his makeshift EMT guy, like, hey, guys,
Yeah.
want to hear it before you hear it from the Joe Skurzewski of Oklahoma.
Yeah, or like the guy that he
Give you a refund.
Yeah. The guy that he hired to be his campaign manager, like I kind of feel, I feel like I would be that guy in that situation. Like I'd be the guy that's like hired to be. If I ended up working in one of these zoos, I'd be the guy who's like, "You're going to be I'm running for president." Oh, okay. And then I have no idea what I'm getting myself into. And
didn't the campaign manager say, it might have been in the Joel McHale recap, where he could have even been honest enough during the series where he was like, "Yes, I get it. Joe Exotic is freaking insane, but it's a dream job for somebody in my field to be a campaign manager of anything."
Well, yeah, and here, like in hindsight, they're probably looking back at it thinking, like, "What the hell was I thinking?" But at the time, it seemed like a good idea, and I think they lay that out in the documentary as well with a lot of the people that he hired at the time. These people, it seemed like a good idea to go and work for him, and they didn't really know what they were getting.
That sounds like all of our ideas. They all seem like a good idea at the time.
Basically, anything Kramer thinks of on Seinfeld. Ketchup and mustard in the same bottle.
So the elephant in the room, did Carol Baskin really kill Don Lewis?
Well,
she won't sue you. Don't worry about it.
No, honestly, if you're gonna put this out on the internet, I don't want Carol Baskin to come after me. Boy, look at the time.
Knock on the door.
So, pizza and Papa John's is here. No, I'm legit not going to say like what I think whether she did it or didn't do it, but I will say, I mean, it's just it is an awfully suspicious thing that guy just mysteriously disappeared. Like they have no clue what happened to that guy. The best suggestion is he fell off of a plane or something. Come on.
So I think something that she would agree with you with is, does Howard ever stand up to her? The answer is obviously no.
No, come on, man.
Unbelievable.
That guy is. I mean, didn't they take a photo shoot where she has like a chain around his neck or something?
Yep.
Yeah, that guy is. Oh my God.
Oh man, what did you think of kind of the juxtaposition of both the Joe Exotic Zoo and the Carol Baskin Zoo? It seemed that Carol was shot in a way where she was way more reserved, but then they always do the Netflix splash about where her husband is 2 episodes later, versus Joe seemed to always be off the rails.
Well, yeah, they always made it look like that. I'm sure that there's a level of truth to that. But, when they showed Carol's, they didn't call it a zoo, it was like a wildlife preserve or whatever.
Big cat rescue.
Big cat rescue in Florida. I wasn't that impressed by it. Now, granted, we're going by the video that we're seeing in the documentary, but it didn't look a whole lot different from what Joe had. I don't know what her practices were, but, I kind of feel like all these people are basically playing the same game. It's just they think they're on different sides of it. But, she claims that her thing was more for conservation, so...
Who burned down the film studio in Oklahoma that ultimately sent Joe's producer to Scandinavia?
Oh, good question. I don't know. I love how that guy fled to Scandinavia. I'm getting as far.
I think he had to connect to he zoomed with Joel McHale from like Norway or something. So there had to be like some planning for that.
Wouldn't it be crazy if there was some like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know who burned down the set, because they lost all of that footage too, right? Didn't they lose a lot of stuff that they would consider evidence?
That's what they would consider it.
What they would consider.
How much do you trust Jeff Lowe, the guy that probably still goes to high school parties to this day?
I don't trust Jeff Lowe. I trust Jeff Lowe about as far as I could throw him. But I mean, again, it kind of plays to it's these people. They're all living in this world where it's like
a fantasy land.
Yeah, it's a fantasy world. They're all like in their own little world, and but the thing is, it's meticulously constructed to the point where they can create it so that they are king of that world, and that's all right for them.
If you had to work at one of the zoo locations that was presented in the documentary, which one would you choose? You have the Scarface one, Doc Antle, Big Cat Rescue, Joe's in Oklahoma, and then Jeff Lowe's in Texas.
Boy, pick your poison. I don't know. If I had to work at one of them, as much as I hate to admit this, probably the Jeff Lowe one, just because at that point in the game, the cat was out of the bag. Because in hindsight...
Good one.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Womp womp. Just because, like, we heard afterwards that, like, those horrible things happened, like, when Joe was in charge. Like, he killed allegedly killed a horse or something that somebody donated to the zoo. And, like,
we're the glue factory.
And those other animals that the feds went after him for killing. Like, that's really what secured the indictment. It wasn't so much the murder for hire. We find out it was the what did he kill, like 6 tigers, like on his grounds. Like, that was what sealed the indictment.
What would be your top choice when it comes to a certain type of expired Walmart meat? If you were to make a sandwich,
Come again?
if you were to make a sandwich with expired Walmart meat, like the tigers and the workers were having,
that,
which would you choose? Yeah.
Oh man. I would probably pick like chicken or something.
Chicken?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
I'd probably go with the expired chicken. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Good. Hey, it was a good question.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ben.
Okay.
All right. Now, are all things settled? Do you believe now that Carroll is being awarded Joe's zoo location in Oklahoma, or is there anything more to this moving forward? Do you think?
Well, I honestly think that at some point Joe is going to get out of prison. I think he's going to get bounced. Either Donald Trump is going to pardon him. Wouldn't that be crazy if Donald Trump pardoned him? I actually don't think it's that, like, extravagant of an idea. I think he might get pardoned for what happened.
I'm surprised that we didn't hear about him trying to appeal to, like, not wanting to get coronavirus in prison, because I think, like, Harvey Weinstein might have done that.
Well, yeah, and I think that they were looking to try to, like, release him from prison because of that, but
he, like, storms the zoo that he no longer owns.
Yeah, he storms the zoo. But I think the story is far from over. I do think that the next thing is going to be, okay, is this guy now going to try to bounce from prison? Is there going to be a push from the public, people that like him? You know, Joe Exotic is that, like, there's people in our lives that, like, they seem to be, I mean, I know he ended up in federal prison, but he got away with it for so long. There's people that are just, like, coated in Teflon, and no matter what they do, they can kind of avoid trouble.
Joe Skurzewski.
Yeah, okay. But, like, I got a lot of skeletons in my closet. Yeah, okay. But, like, for whatever they do, they can just, for the longest time, things just bounce off of them. And I think for a while, that was him up until it caught up with it. We all have known one or two people in our lives that, like, for whatever, no matter what they do, they just avoid trouble. And, you know, and meanwhile, I look at someone the wrong way, I get 6 months in prison.
It's been a tumultuous year, obviously, for lots of reasons in this country and really around the world. But at the same time, is Tiger King still the pop culture moment that gives us the Halloween costumes of the year?
I think so. There's going to be so many Joe Exotic and Carol Baskin costumes. I'm sure you're going to have your coronavirus costumes, which, is it tasteless or not? I'll leave that to the
loyal listener club.
The loyal listener, the beholder. But that's going to end up being the big costume this year. If we have a Halloween, I mean, we're going to have some sort of Halloween. The degree to which is, but yeah, that's going to definitely be the big.
I'm definitely going to be the campaign manager. That's my low effort costume. Last year I was Peter Griffin. Now I just need a pair of glasses and plaid.
Yeah,
and I'll be Josh Dial or whatever his name is.
I love how you were Peter Griffin and you barely made any changes to your normal wardrobe. You just got some, like, glasses and, like, dyed your hair.
It looked good.
Okay,
I did not even dye my hair.
No, you didn't dye your hair. That's right.
What's the plan for the KMOT 10 o'clock newscast on Halloween this year?
I don't know.
Early favorites.
Well, I don't know. We might have to dress up as Carol Baskin. If I can convince whoever my 10 o'clock co-anchor is to be, I'll have to be Joe Exotic, I guess, because my name is Joe, and she'll have to be Carol. Yeah. And then you can be, I guess, the campaign manager, and then we'll have to figure out.
It'll be interesting if there's still social distancing rules. In fact, too, you can't really, like, buddy up with it.
Yeah, that's the thing. We can't be next to one another on set. We got to be 6 feet apart. So
now we haven't been able to do an April Fool's show in recent years because it's been on weekend or serious news events have come up.
Yeah.
So what have you missed the most about not being able? So if nobody's seen it in years back, like, Joe's done sports and he's done football highlights too, and we've had, like, other co-anchors do, like, the weather, and I was on, like, the main news desk.
Yeah.
So, man, it's been tough not being able to do that recently.
Yes, it has. I mean, it's one of the rare things at KMOT. We like to have a little bit of fun sometimes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, really? We're fortunate that we're in a position that we're able to do that. But yeah, with April Fools, we did have fun sometimes. We had, it was Ben and Stephanie Waldriff, our former meteorologist, anchored a newscast. And then Katie Firkins did the weather and I did sports. I think here's the thing. If we're able to do an April Fool's thing again, I got to do weather. Because I've done sports and I've shot sports highlights for you, so that's not really original. It would be funny if I was the weathercaster and I did the weather, and then I had like my co-anchor do sports, and then like you and
anybody else,
and you and like we would have to figure out a way to get Henry to do the news too. So you and Henry
that'd
Bryce
be great.
Yeah, it would be great. Well, Henry could handle it. He's great.
All green. Oh yeah, Henry can do it.
Oh yeah. I don't know about you, but
speaking of another farce, does having a mock Twitter page at Skurzewski made about you, does that mean like you've made it? It's unfortunate that it gets too crazy political at the same time.
So like, I'll be brutally honest. When I first found out about it, I was a little flattered because it's kind of like if somebody makes a fake Twitter of you, then you know you've got it made. But then after a while, they started posting some like political or offensive things, and it became more of an annoyance. Somebody created a fake Twitter of me, and I'm trying to figure out ways to get the blue check mark on my Twitter to make things clear that it's not me. I did have some people messaging me on Facebook because they had been like followed by there, and they were like, "What's the deal with this?" And I said, "We've reported it. We've reported it to Twitter. And we did report it. They did make some offensive comments on that Twitter feed, so I washed my hands of it. We're not affiliated with Skurzewski or whatever the hell it is."
What's kind of your game plan to getting verified, considering you are pretty illegitimate?
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I've been reaching out to some people that I know that like know people who work in politics, like how they got their Twitters verified, because Twitter stopped its like submission process for verification. You can't just submit your page unless you work for a company and then their digital manager. So I'm either going to go that route, or I might knuckle under and reach out again to our social media guy and see if he can have our company's social media get our stuff, get the check mark.
His Twitter account is being verified by top men. Dr.
Yeah.
Jones.
Top men.
What is social media's place in local Minot news? It seems like obviously people that aren't even like professional journalists, there's groups that can end up with some pretty good story leads sometimes.
Yeah, that's the thing that, it's when I interview job candidates for positions at KMOT, one of the things I always ask them, where do you find story ideas? And they always inevitably say, well, I get a lot of my stories on social media. As well they should. What's tough for us is whenever there's a story that breaks, and we do get breaking news here, there's this push, we got to get it out on Facebook and Twitter. So we got to get the story published and then out. And I'll be honest, I don't really like it that much because it takes away from some of the journalism of it. It's forced us to kind of update the viewer moment to moment. Now that's good to a degree, but I also think it rushes us unnecessarily to the point where, we don't. I'm of the opinion I want to be first, but I'd rather be right than be first.
Yeah.
And using Twitter and Facebook, it forces you to have to be first.
Always important to have it right over always being first. Of course, you got to have it true for sure, and also you want to try to look good too. I mean, how do you pick out all the suits that you have, Ron Burgundy?
Yeah.
Or are you more of a Sam Rothstein in Casino?
I'm probably more of a Ron Burgundy guy. I try not to make that big of a deal about it, but I have probably somewhere between like 8 and 12 different like suit arrangements that I could wear. And I just kind of mix it up to make sure that I'm not wearing the same thing day to day, so I make it look different. The one thing that I have splurged on, and it's really, and I'll admit this, it is a little weird, I have hundreds of neckties. I have like a giant tub of neckties at home, just because I was able to, a few years back, I got into this kick of buying a lot of like cheap neckties online, so I have a lot of, I mean, they're pretty nice. They're nice neckties, but I can probably wear a different necktie for every newscast. Oh, I know I could. For every newscast throughout the entire year. I could go an entire calendar year knowing that I anchor 5 days a week, so Monday through Friday, without wearing a different necktie.
Oh, so you don't wash your neckties? That's gross.
No, I don't. Well, do you wash your neckties?
No. What was kind of speaking of presenting yourself well, what's your campaign platform for becoming the vice president of the Minot Chamber Chorale?
You know what? To be honest, I didn't have much of a campaign platform because when the meeting happened, I didn't realize that it was going to be a point of discussion. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, I sing in the Minot Chamber Chorale, and I'm on the board. I was elected to the board of directors, and then I just at our last board meeting we selected a new president and vice president, and I took on as the vice president, and mainly, so I part of the thing with groups in the community is that we're trying to get young people involved as much as possible. And I see with my position, I don't have the time to be the president of the group because with that, you got to plan a bunch of meetings, and I got to plan meetings at KMLT. But I kind of see myself in a position where I can maybe help encourage some other young people in joining the choir and getting involved in the arts in the community. So that's kind of in part why I decided to endeavor in this position.
More Joe Skurzewski leadership at the Minot Chamber Chorale. So I guess for them nowadays, it's pretty much there goes the neighborhood.
Yeah, well, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, they got me running the Instagram page and the Facebook page, and now I'm the vice president. So,
how does singing in that group setting translate over to if you're doing karaoke like the state fair contest or going out? What can you sing for karaoke?
Yeah, well, the thing about it is we sing music for choirs, so it's choral music. So it's not exactly Dierks Bentley or Luke Bryan. So when I'm singing, oftentimes people who are in choirs will shy away from doing karaoke because it's karaoke is almost intentionally bad. You know what I mean? It's like you're trying to be good, but it's like karaoke is always.
You're like, come on.
Yeah, I'm not as big of a karaoke guy, and I think it's because of that. So.
Oh, well, I mean, at least you could try.
I could try. I did karaoke a few years back at the state fair. I didn't win, but...
Against my better judgment, I'll ask you this. What's been your favorite in your black book of Ben Barr quotes that you've collected over the years? What are some of your favorite taglines?
Yeah.
As he opens his saved text message that he's drafted to himself.
I have a feed here. I'm going back here. Some of these I can't say on your podcast because they're offensive.
The context of it all is kind of hard to tell.
Well, yeah, the context too. I got to go back here and see if I can find some of them. Some of them are just like, the hell was he talking about? But I'm going to read these at your wedding, assuming I'm invited to your wedding.
Okay.
All right, let's see here.
Never assume.
All right, so we got a couple Ben Barr quotes here that I text these to myself. Oh, good. There's just enough vodka left for another doubler right before this terrifying horror movie.
Fair enough.
Ben apparently needs some alcohol to get him through the...
you need a beer to get through this podcast.
Yeah, well... Zombie Jesus would frickin' snap your neck in half like that.
Well, it's similar to the Nun. Nobody's going all the way.
Here's another one. 15 crosses just hung up like that. Gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Oh, yeah. I was like filming something in a church the one time. It was just like the nun in the church basement.
Yeah. There's a couple other here. Where do these nuns get off dressing like that?
I don't know.
What was he talking about?
You tell me. You went to Catholic school.
Yeah. How fun would it be if I put like a Harry Potter book like above the toilet?
Come on, that's if you're stuck there for a while.
That's a good idea. Yeah, well, all right. Yeah. Just
now. Well, to be fair, right now I have Dakota Day Trips by Cliff Naylor up there. So yeah.
All right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just a beautiful day out, kicking back, watching Cops.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You sound like that pig that screams like a girl.
I don't know who that would be.
What was the context? I'm going to pick up some tequila on my way to work tomorrow. Okay. You told that to your boss. I mean,
easy.
All right. You guys are a bunch of
like
donkeys.
tequila.
Oh, my God. Remember that part in Pinocchio, the first time you see the whale, that kind of entrance? What was he talking about? Oh, my God.
You knew what I was talking about.
I probably do. Here. My quarantine resolution is to buy more cigars.
Okay.
That's not bad.
Well, didn't I tell you, I'm going to play Pokemon Stay and just catch the Pokemon in my apartment?
Yeah.
For Pokemon Go.
Here's one. I don't make sandwiches anymore. I'm off that.
Yeah.
What?
Well, I was fed up with them, yeah.
All that redness, I knew it was the thumb.
What? Yeah, I don't have any explanation for that.
You might need to edit some of those off. But yeah, I have a running thing on my phone of all these Ben Barr quotes. So
Oh, man. Many more to come. And now I'm going to have to start keeping track of you after you putting me on blast. I'll have to report you to your supervisor, Joe.
Todd will probably laugh at these.
Yeah, exactly. So now you've finally been able to breathe and not work so hard. Appreciate you. It's been a long time coming. We've had some crazy golf and work schedules. I've been golfing.
Did.
You've been working, all that.
Yeah.
So, Again, guys, this is Joe Skurzewski. He's the news director, and for better or worse, he's my boss.
You got to let me do some impressions here before we go.
Well, then go ahead.
All right. I do this is Sports Center, brought to you by
Dick's Sporting Goods.
Yeah, every season starts at Dick's.
Look, there's plenty of people at my rally. I don't care. All right?
It's going to be huge. Okay.
That's Joe Skurzewski.
Let me be clear.
Completely off the rails.
Yeah, no.
Joe,
all right.
Thanks for coming to the Oval Office. Till next time, buddy.
I'm gonna make a podcast he can't refuse.